So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over some past exam questions related to reverse percentages. Now as always, I'll include a copy of the questions that we go through in this video as a link in the description, along with a lesson link that goes over this topic in greater detail. Now before we get started working through some past reverse percentage questions, let's just have a quick overview over what it is you need to revise and what it is you actually need to know. So the first thing may sound really quite simple, but it's really important that you recognize a reverse percentage question. So in a reverse percentage question, typically you are going from the old to a new price. So that's more like your common one, but a reverse percentage question is when you're going from the new price to the old one. So when reading a question, you need to know, do you know the original and you want to know the new price, or do you know the new price and you're trying to find the original price? And if it's going from new to old, then it's a reverse percentage question. So let's just quickly write that down. So this is a reverse percentage, and the top one is what we call, I would say, a normal percentage increase or decrease question. The next thing you then need to know is decimal multipliers. So you need to know decimal multipliers when you're increasing or decreasing something. Now remember that when you are using decimal multipliers, you always start with 100%. Then you either add your percentage for an increase or take away your percentage from 100 and then convert that final percentage into a decimal, and there you will have your decimal multiplier. So it's really important that you work with that. Yes, you can do it with fractions, but I strongly recommend that whenever you're doing a percentage increase or decrease question, be very knowledgeable with decimal multipliers and use that as a preferred option. The next thing is know the flow. Now when you're going from old to new, then you're simply going to be multiplying by the decimal multiplier. Now when you're going from new to old, you do the opposite of multiplying by decimal multiplier, which is dividing by the decimal multiplier. Now the key thing to remember is the digits, the number used for the decimal multiplier to go from old to new is the same as the decimal multiplier being used to go from new to old. The only difference is the sign. So the only difference is when going from old to new, you multiply. When going from new to old, you divide. The next type of questions that you can get, which is covered in the topic test that we're going to go through, is basically reversing repeated percentage change questions. So this is when you've got a compound interest question, although compound interest implies an increase, but where it's decreasing as well, or even a mixture of increase or decrease, where you know the new price, and then you've got a series of previous increases or decreases, and you then need to work out the old price, which is basically like a two-step reverse percentage question. But again, it is covered in this topic test, so I'll highlight it when we go through it as a particular question. Now again, if you're wanting to go in more detail or haven't got a clue about reverse percentages, then I strongly recommend that you watch the lesson that's attached to this video in the description. I think there was a link at the start of the video, so you may have to go back to the start. But I strongly recommend you watch that video, because as it goes through the concept of reverse percentages and also goes through a series of questions that will lead you through to the more complicated questions. Now before we get started, a little reminder that if you're wanting access to these questions, all you need to do is just simply click on the link in the description. You can download the document that we are going to be using. Alternatively, you can just simply pause the video as I read out the question, have an attempt at it, then unpause as we go through the answer. So looking at question 1, it says 50% of a number is 35. What is the number? So here we know that if 50% is equal to 35, then we want to know what 100% is. So to get from 50 to 100, we need to multiply by 2. So then we multiply the 35 by 2. So the original number then is going to be 70. For question 2, it says that a bookshop increases its prices by 12%. Write down a decimal multiple that is used to calculate an increase of 12%. So again, you always start with 100%. We're adding 12%. So that's going to equal 112%, and that as a decimal is 1.12. Then for 2b, it says find the new price of a book that was £8 and whose price has been increased by 12%. So this isn't a reverse percentage question, because I know the original price, which is £8, and I want to know what the new price is going to be. So here I multiply by 1.12, and if I do that on my calculator, it's 8 times 1.12, I get an answer of £8.96. Then moving on to question 3, it says a tie shop is having a sale. All prices will be reduced by 15%. Write down a decimal multiplier that is used to calculate a decrease of 15%. So again, always start with 100, take away 15, that equals 85%. And 85 as a decimal is 0.85. Then for 3b, it says find the new price of a tie that was £14 and whose price has been decreased in a sale by 15%. So here it's going to be 14 multiplied, because I'm going from old to new, and it's going to be multiplied by 0.85. So again, on the calculator, 14 multiplied by 0.85, and that gives me an answer of £11.90. Don't forget to always give money questions to 2 decimal places. Then moving on to question 4, it says after a 10% decrease, the cost of a new cooker is £198. Work out the original price of the cooker. Well, if I start with old to new, then if I'm decreasing by 10%, then the decimal multiplier would be multiplying by 0.9, because I'm taking away 10% from 100, which is 90, as a decimal is 0.9. So then if I'm then going from new to old, which is what I'm doing in this particular question, I need to divide by 0.9. So it's going to be 198 divided by 0.9, and that will give me an answer of £220. Then moving on to question 5, it says that a meal costs £78 inclusive of VAT at 20%. Now inclusive basically means including. And it says what is the cost of the meal before VAT is added. So again, if I'm going from old to new, if I can spell new, which I've done that twice now. So here, if I'm adding 20%, it's going to be 120%. So that's going to be times 1.12. And this value here is 78. So I want to work out the old price. So I'm dividing 78 by 1.2. So 78 divided by 1.2. And again, if I do that on the calculator, I get an answer of £65. Moving on to question 6, it says that a gas bill came to £60.23 inclusive of VAT at 5%. What is the cost of the gas before VAT was added? So again, from old to new, there we got it right this time. We're going for multiplying at 5% increase, so that's going to be 1 times 1.05, and the new bill was 160.23. So then here, to get from the old price, I need to divide by 1.05. So 160.23 divided by 1.05, and 160.23 divided by 1.05 gives me an answer of 152.60. It then says John pays 147 for an oil heater which includes VAT. The shopkeeper has incorrectly added the VAT at 5% instead of 20%. What a plunker. And it says find the correct price that John should have paid. So here we're going from the old price to the new. So to add, they did add 5%. So then here what we need to then do is add 5%, so that's times 1.05, and this price was 147. So to find what the price is without VAT, I need to divide by 147, 1.05, don't know what I'm doing there. So the original, or the old price, minus the VAT is going to be 147 divided by 1.05. So type that into my calculator, I get an answer of £140. So that's the original price of the cooker without VAT. So now what I need to do is add 20%. So it's going to be 140 multiplied by 1.2. So 140 multiplied by 1.2 gives me an answer of £168. Then moving on to question 8, it says that a bike depreciates in value by 20% in its first year and then 15% in its second year. 2 years after being bought, the bike has a value of £326.40. What is the value of the bike when new? So here we've got the original price, which is the old price. Then in its first year, it's depreciated by 20%. So that's going to be multiplied by 0.8. And that's the first year. Then it goes down further another 15%. So that's going to be 0.85. And this is the second year price. And that is £326.40. So then to work out the original price, which is what I'm wanting, I need to divide that number by 0.85, and then I need to divide it by 0.8. So then if I do 326.4 divided by 0.85, so let me just quickly do that on the calculator, divided by 0.85, that gives me a first year price of 384, so that's 384. So then I need to do 384 divided by 0.8, which gives me an answer of £480. So then moving on to question 9, it says Peter invests in shares. In the first year, share prices increase in a value of 13%. In the second year, the share price decreases to a value of 13%. What is the value of his shares as a percentage of his original investment? So for this, let's start off by imagining that the original investment was, at a guess, let's say £200. So then what we then do is the final investment worth value is going to be 200. Then increasing by 13% is where I multiply by 1.13. Then a decrease of 13% is then multiplying by 0.87. Now if I type that all into my calculator, I get 200 times 1.13 divided by 0.87, and that comes up to a value of 196.62. Now the question is asking me to write it as a percentage of the original investment, so it's going to be 196.62 divided by the original, which is 200, and then we multiply by 100 because we want it as a percentage. So that divided by 200 multiplied by 100 gives me an answer of 98.31. Then moving on to question 10, it says that a sum of money is invested for 3 years at a rate of 5% each year. The value of the investment at the end of the 3 years is 4,630.50 pence. What is the value of the original investment? So for this, we start off with the original, or the old price. Then we've got the first year, then we've got the second year, and then we've got the third year. Now in the third year, it's 4630.50. And for every single year, we're increasing by 5%. So it's going to be multiplied by 1.05. So multiplied by 1.05, multiplied by 1.05. So then to work out the prices, so the second year price is going to be divided by 1.05. So 4630.5 divided by 1.05 gives me an answer of 4410. Then to work out the first year price, again, I divide by 1.05, which gives me an answer of 4200. And then the original price at the start, again, I divide by 1.05, and I get an answer of 4,000. So the original investment was £4,000, and that concludes the end of this topic test.